I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson, and I love a good story. And you're going to hear a really good story today. It's a true story. And in the church, we call it a testimony. They call that the same thing in court as well. And my guest today, his name is Jermaine Wilson. He's a city commissioner in Leavenworth, Kansas, former mayor of Leavenworth. And if you go Leavenworth, if you're not from the area, and you're like, I've heard of that. Why have I heard of that? Well, there's one of the biggest employers, maybe the biggest employer in the town, is a prison. I know there's a big medium security, as well as I think a minimum security associated with it, but I don't know. When I think of Leavenworth, I think prison, which is also where our guest spent some time, and not as an employee, as someone who was incarcerated. And we always look at the prison system and we go, is it punishment? Is it reform? A little bit of both, but the recidivism rate is kind of high, and you go, man, what do we do? Well, here's a success story, and you're going to find out how. And I don't know where you're at. Maybe you've been in prison yourself, in and out. You need to hear this today. Maybe you have a loved one in prison. You need to hear this today. Maybe you just like a good God story. You'll appreciate this. Jermaine, welcome to Life Today Live. Good to see you.
Hey, glad to be here, sir. Thank you for having me.
Okay. You just kind of light up the screen when you smile on it. And I know there's a lot behind that. But before we get into the good, take us back a little bit to kind of a little bit of how you grew up and how that that pretty much landed you in prison.
Yes, sir. So life has taught me that things that we are exposed to will affect the way we grow and shape the experiences we walk into. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I was exposed to drug crime and violence at a very early age. My mother was 15 years old when she had her first child, dropped out of school, no education. And by the age of 21, my mother had 4 children. I was the youngest of the 4, and my father had spent time incarcerated throughout the early stages of my life, and he struggled with drug addiction. And my mother wanted something different for her family, so she moved us from a small town that was in Missouri to Leavenworth, Kansas. She didn't realize that this was a community full of prisons. There was a lot of drug activities taking place into the government housing where we moved in, but she had to settle for what she could afford, which was government housing. And growing up in this neighborhood, there was so much crime and violence, and it impacted me and my siblings. And growing up, I struggled with insecurities, always wanted to fit in. I'm 5'2", so people always made fun of me because of my height. And the only time that I started feeling accepted was once I started using drugs. At the age of 11, I started using drugs. And by the age of 12, I had committed my first crime. And my mother and father wanted something different for us. And so they made us start going to church. They got saved. But because I was exposed to the crime at an early age, it affected my upbringing. And at the age of 15, I committed a robbery charge and was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile corrections, tried to escape, tried to run from my problems, and ended up getting more time and was sentenced to 4 years in juvenile corrections.
I think our society would look at you. You're poverty, government housing, a lack of education in the family. Be blunt, we look at you and go, well, he's a minority, and there's all sorts of people that would just say doesn't have a chance. And then you end up in prison, in juvie, and you go, yeah, nothing. I'm curious, though, about that, because you kind of go, for those of us who want to help, who care about people, we're like, how do we break that cycle? It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know, but it seems like in a healthy culture, regardless of the cultural background, when you do positive things, you get the attention that a kid needs. You get the acceptance that a kid wants. and that provides good guidance. But it seems like in a really dysfunctional culture, you get praise and respect for the wrong things. Was that the case with you?
Oh, yes, sir. So the drug dealers and the gangsters, they were glorified while the educators and the people who were going to school were criticized.
Yeah.
And it was normal for us because deep down, we wanted something different, wanted to be positive, but positivity didn't lead you until being, surrounded by people who would lift you up and encourage you. Like, no, like people talked about you. And because you didn't want to be excluded, you wanted to be included, you started settling and doing what everybody else was doing. And that's where, that led up into the crime. Led into that path of crime, which was crime was normalized. We didn't realize like it was anything bad because everybody was doing it.
Yeah. And, I appreciate you saying that deep down inside, you wanted something different, because I think that's critical for especially the church community to not go in with a judgmental attitude and looking at behavior and going, okay, what's behind that? How do I reach that young man and give him what he's desperately searching for in a healthy way instead of what the culture and the community is telling him? Because it's a hard situation for people that don't understand it, but not hopeless and desperately needed. And this is how we change. It's a generational change. I'm curious. Okay, so you're in juvie, you get out eventually. What happens when you get out?
Well, once released, I literally surrounded myself around the same people who were doing the same thing, returned to the same neighborhood. And because I didn't prepare to succeed, I was destined for destruction. Because I didn't understand who I was and what I wanted in life, didn't understand my purpose, I began to settle for those things that caused me to suffer. Got off into selling drugs, became addicted to the drugs that I was selling. And it was literally because of the company I was surrounding myself with. And the Bible tells us evil company corrupts good manners, and the company we keep will shape the character we carry. And because I was surrounded by people who were destined for destruction, I started doing those same things. But we serve a God that is gracious. He tried to get my attention by blessing me with the son. I wasn't ready to be a father, didn't know how to be a father. And instead of me taking care of my responsibilities, I literally chose something that didn't love me back, which was the world, which was the streets. And because I chose to love the world, I ended up catching a drug charge and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. My son was 8 months old when I went to prison.
So a lot of this comes down to identity, right?
Sure.
How did you see yourself during those times?
Well, during that time after I was released out of juvie, I saw myself as a felon. I didn't see myself worthy of a second chance because of the crimes I committed, because of the stigma that was attached to being a felon. Society's not going to accept you. Why even try when you know what the end road is going to be? You're going to be told no, so why even try? And because I listened to the voices that came from the enemy that I was a failure, I believed in those things. And people normally, respond to what they believe. And so I believed the lies that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy of a second chance. And so that's when I began to settle for those things that caused me to suffer.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so you're, 19, 20-ish, and you're back. And this time you're in adult prison, right? That's different. That was a different kind of experience, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. I'm 20 years old at this time now.
20? Okay. What happens there?
Yeah, so now I'm sitting in the prison cell, locked down 23 hours a day. Reality set in. I began to think over my life. My dad been to prison. My brother was in prison. My sister was in prison. Now I'm sitting in prison. And I realized at that moment while I'm sitting in my prison cell, I can't repair my past, but I have an opportunity to prepare for my future. And in order for me to be present in my son's life, I have to make a change. I have to do something different. I couldn't redo the footprints that my father laid before me, but I could create new footprints for my son to walk in. And that's when I made the decision in my prison cell. I'm not going to leave prison the same way that I came to prison because I want my son to experience the things that I experienced. But in order for the chain of crime and incarceration to be broken, I have to break the cycle. And that's when I said, I need help. Lord, if you are real, help me. And that's when God sent forth prison fellowship in my life.
Okay, so let's get down to the root here, because yeah, you go to prison for your actions.
Yes, sir.
But your actions, they come from your thinking, and what you just expressed is a whole new way of thinking. And where did this even come from? When you're in a prison cell, how did you change your mind? Because that's the starting point.
Well, because sitting in prison and locked down 23 hours a day, the distractions are removed, and it's only you and God in that prison cell. And I began to just talk to myself and talk to the Lord. I'm like, God, like, this is painful. This is hurtful. And I don't want this to be my life. You know, my parents experienced this. My siblings experienced it. I don't want my son to experience this. And in order for me to make sure that he does it, I have to change my life. And so time gets you time, it helps you to reflect. It really helps you to prioritize, and you really begin to question and ask yourself, is this the life that I really want? And when I was able to answer that question and say no, that's when I knew I had to take the steps that was going to lead me to making right decisions and changing my actions.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get rid of the thinking, before you can really stick with the actions. Otherwise, behavior modification works in some cases and works sometimes for a while. But man, changing your mind, changing your desires, changing who you see yourself as, that's the core of it. All right, so you mentioned prison fellowship.
Yes, sir.
Tell me the role they played, because I love this.
Yeah, so Prison Fellowship's the nation's largest Christian nonprofit organization serving incarcerated individuals and formerly incarcerated individuals and their families. And so when I asked God, like, I needed help, he sent for Prison Fellowship. I wrote a letter and asked to be accepted into the program. I got accepted into the program. And the first day that I walked into the program, I'm embraced by men that are inside of this program. And they welcomed me, they supported me, encouraged me, and they said, welcome, brother, you are home. But it was the love that I received from this community that I've never experienced before. It was accountability. It was the spirit of unity, but most of all, they were there to support me. And within that support, everything that I needed, they provided for me. I needed help with education. They helped me to become educated. When I had to transform my thinking, they gave me the tools that I needed to transform my thinking. And this, while I was in the Prison Fellowship Academy program, it helped me to realize that I'm a person that made a mistake, but no life is beyond God's reach. I'm not a felon, not a failure, not a mistake, but I am a person with a God-given purpose. And within the Prison Fellowship Academy, which is our in-prison program that I experienced, it literally helped me to unlearn those negative things that I learned and replace my criminal thinking and behavior with renewed purpose and hope. And once I realized, like, God had a plan for my life, that's when I surrendered, gave my life to the Lord, and that's when I accepted Christ. And for the first time in my life, I was completely free, transformed from the inside out. I tell people it took me losing my freedom to discover my purpose, and God used Prison Fellowship to lead me to finding Jesus.
I get goosebumps, because I mean, this is it. This is it. This is what Christianity is about. And it's not just, again, the behavior modification. It's the identity transfer, from the world to the kingdom of heaven. This is what people need to hear. So how long ago was that?
2008.
Okay.
I've been released from prison almost 15 years. December the 9th makes 15 years I've been set free out of prison. Physical bondage.
So yeah, right. And that's the thing, man. Some people are in spiritual bondage and they never even go to prison. But you've lived almost as much of your life now with a different identity than you had for the first part of your life, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's the difference? How's it feel?
So I have Christ in my life, and I understand my purpose, and I am a man of God who's committed to serving his community. I'm a faithful husband. I'm a father. I'm a leader in my community. I'm not a failure, not a mistake. I am a success, not a statistic. I know who I am because of who Jesus Christ is in my life.
I mean, geez, you say it so well, but it's so true, and I absolutely, I just love this. Okay, so how? Coming out of prison, because I mentioned, you're a city commissioner now, and we made jokes before we started about politicians and being crooks and all that kind of stuff. But I don't even know how you're eligible for mayor. I guess I don't know enough about politics to know, but how did you get out of prison as a convict and get a job, turn that around, and not just get a job, but like there are a lot of people that run for office that never even make it, that they've never been to prison. I mean, you're excelling is what I'm saying. How did you get on that path?
So the road to redemption wasn't an easy one. There was some roadblocks along the way. Once released from prison, I faced those same barriers that so many individuals face.
Yeah.
I was limited housing. I was turned down from jobs due to the fact that I had a criminal record. And when society counted me out, God used the church to welcome me in. It was my church that gave me the opportunity to work. It was my church that blessed me with housing and food that I needed to be able to provide for my family. And when the church opened their doors and allowed me to be able to serve, that opened the door for me to get involved inside of my community, because I seen that I had a special place to be able to serve, to teach kids. And I seen the need that was inside of my community. I prayed and asked God to show me what is it that he wants me to do while I'm released. And God literally spoke to me, and he said he wanted me to create unity within my city. And so I started working with our local law enforcement, started doing outreach events, started building trust between citizens and law enforcement, started giving back. I wanted to let people know, just because that you have a past and you made mistakes, your mistakes doesn't define who you are. God still can use you. I developed a great relationship with our chief of our police department, and we started doing outreach events. And it was during that time people started seeing that I had the ability to be able to unite people in our community. And there was one particular event that we did, and it was called Bridging the Gap, Unity in the Community in the City. And that's when people started asking me the question, like, man, have you ever thought about getting involved in politics? The way that you are able to bring people together, we need a leader like you. We understand the story. You're not afraid to talk about what you have overcome. Most politicians lie about their past, but you're truthful about your past. People wanted me to run, and I literally said no. I said, that's the devil's playground. I don't do politics.
And you weren't wrong. I mean,
but I prayed. God kept bringing it back in front of me, and I said, God, if this is you, open the door that no man can close, and close the door that no man can open. And when I seen that it was God opening up those doors, I allowed the Lord to lead me, and I ran for public office, received the most votes, and became the mayor of Leavenworth.
So, like, you get out of prison and people are like, yeah, you're going to have a hard time getting a job, if you can even get a job. Nobody wants to hire you. You're going to be unemployable. That's again, the message of the world. But you didn't listen to that. You listened to God. Now, again, it's not an easy, it's instant rise to success, but you ended up, the path God took you on, they were basically asking you to take this job, that a lot of people covet or something. And it's like, that's how God works. And I mean, how wild is this to you? I mean, is this almost unreal at times to you?
Very much so, because when I was in prison, I just wrote my goals out. I said, Lord, I want to be a faithful husband. I want to be an amazing father. I want to be a leader in my community. I literally saw myself as a modern day Martin Luther King Jr. And so I trusted God, gave God that. And I said, man, I'm okay with this. You allow this to happen. That's success to me. But the Bible tells us he does exceedingly abundantly above all ask or think of. Yeah. And so when I gave God my goals, not only did he allow me to accomplish them, he enhanced them. And So is it wild? Yes, but we serve a God that does amazing things, and it's nothing that I could have did. The only thing that I did was I said yes to God's calling, and so everything else happens now in my life. I just thank God for it because I know there's so much more that He has in store for me. This is just the beginning.
I believe it. And you know, the beautiful thing is that you weren't like pursuing a position or anything. You were pursuing the person God wanted you to be, which is pursuing
Sure.
Christ. And that's key, because if you'd had come out and tried to figure out how you could be mayor or city commissioner or whatever, it would have been a train wreck, you know, and disappointment and hard. But you pursued God in your life, and then He elevated you. And I
Yes,
think
sir.
people need to know that, because that's we get things out of order, and it just doesn't work. God's way works, and that's why He tells us to follow His way, and our way doesn't. But this is beautiful. Okay, so what's your role with Prison Fellowship now? Are you just an advocate, or are you involved with them?
So I actually serve as the mission ambassador for Prison Fellowship. I travel across the nation sharing the mission and vision and our programs to those that are listening, to our supporters. I work with churches, want to extend this invitation to churches to get involved with Prison Fellowship. We would love for you all to sign up and participate in our Angel Tree program. I share my second chance story. I advocate for second chances. Anything that Prison Fellowship asks me to do, I'm that guy to do it because I love the work that we are doing. And we are here to help make a difference and transform lives in and out of prison, and also impact families and break the cycle of crime and incarceration.
Yeah, well, and you're also the perfect guy to represent them, because you're a success story. And I love it. Okay, I want to show people the website real quick. This is prisonfellowship.org, and Jermaine mentioned their Christmas drive, a great thing to do. But, you know, the thing that I want people to hear is that there is no one who is hopeless, and God can do amazing things, exceedingly, as He said, and abundantly beyond what we can imagine. Don't give up on people. And you may go, I don't know how. Obedience is all God wants. Just if you feel like He's telling you to give to Prison Fellowship, then give to Prison Fellowship. If you're saying get involved in some other way, start something in your church, go to prison and ask them what they need. You know, find a need and fill it. That's an easy, you know, recipe for success. But I just love it. So here's two last questions, and the obvious one is, you know, to someone who may be watching who has been in and out of prison, or they have a loved one in and out of prison. What hope do you give them?
Bible tells us, for we all have fallen short of the glory of God, which means we all have made mistakes. No one wants to be judged based upon the worst mistake that they ever made in life. God has given you a second chance and an opportunity for you to move forward. With that grace that God has given you, I encourage you to extend that grace to your loved one that's incarcerated as well, too.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And then the last question would be, for those who may have fallen into the world's way of thinking of, you know, poverty, crime, drugs, prison, hopeless, you know, what would you say to the the sleeping church that needs to get off of its butt and get into the prisons and help people? Can I put it that way?
Yeah, and the Bible tells us, continue to remember those who are in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible also instructs us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. The Bible also instructs us to fight for justice. Matthew 25 says, when you have the least of my people, you have done this unto me. When were you in prison? And so God is instructing us to serve those that are incarcerated. As believers in Christ, and the word of God is our blueprint, it's our compass, we must obey the word of God, not just be listeners, but be doers. So I encourage you all, church folks, we all work together. We are one body. There's many parts, but there's one body. But we all have to be unified in the spirit of Christ and do what the Bible has instructed us to do. Divided, we can do what's possible, but together we can do the impossible.
I love it. Dude, you are, I thank God for your testimony. And
Amen.
I love the fact that you share it with such passion and joy, because I can see it's real. And it just blesses me. And I know everybody else watching They got to feel the same thing. If not, you need to be spiritually reborn because you're dead. But man, thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing this today. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go? You got the platform. You can say whatever you want.
Please, please, please join Prison Fellowship Ministries. Our website is prisonfellowship.org. Our mission is to encounter Jesus with those impacted by incarceration. With your help, we can experience a revival in and out of the prison as the church come together with the church on the inside and the outside. By doing so, we will spark a revival that will bring justice, mercy, and hope to our culture. Thank you all for being the church.
Oh, thank you, man. You're a great representative of it, so don't ever quit.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you so much. This has been a joy. All right. I know you've enjoyed this too. Share it with someone else. Hit the share button. If you have not liked, followed, or subscribed here at Live Today TV, please do that because, I don't know if we'll ever top the story, but we'll do our best. Appreciate you being here. Check out prisonfellowship.org. We'll see you again next time on Live Today Live.